You're listening to Homeschool Unrefined. I'm Maren.
And I'm Angela. Let's encourage each other, laugh, and get real about homeschool.
Welcome to the podcast where we keep homeschool simple, real, and fun. You've got episode 68, where we don't make meaning for our kids, with Amanda Ginn.
Hello, everybody. We are so glad you're here. Thank you for listening. We want to be a support to you and an encouragement to you. And so if you ever want to reach out to us on social media or through email, please do that because we'd love to hear from you. And we'd love to just connect and get to know you better, if that's all it is too. We've gotten so many nice messages from people who are reaching out, and I love that.
Yeah, I love connecting with all of you because I feel like there's something like really strong. Like there's this strong bond that people who listen to this podcast, like we all have something really big in common, and I love that. Yeah. Some kind of philosophy, of education and how we see our kids. I just love it. So
yeah, so we'd love to hear from you. If you have not reached out yet and you're a lurker, please do. I understand being a lurker though, because I'm pretty much a lurker.
I am mainly a lurker. Yeah.
So I get that, but we would love to hear from you. So thank you for listening.
Yeah. So Angela, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm okay. I had about the worst night's sleep I've had since my kids were like newborns.
Oh no.
Yeah.
What happened?
So my son, he's 9 and he gets growing pains.
Oh.
Did you ever get those?
Never.
Okay. See, I know. I think people who don't get them are skeptical. Because like Jeremy's really.
Have you?
I got him when I was a kid, so I know how bad it hurts.
So you know.
Yep.
Okay.
But Jeremy has never, so he's always like, "Are you sure that's what's going on?" And yeah. So he kind of had him before he went to bed a little bit last night, so I was like, "Uh-oh." But anyway, he was up a lot, and he got a bath in the middle of the night, and I had to rub his legs and stuff. Anyway, and I about maybe a year ago, I realized, my kids are getting older, and these times when they wake me up in the middle of the night, I really got to treasure these times. Because
treasure? Yeah. I mean, I get it. No, I get it. It's special. And this is like the one, what if, like you always say, what if this is the last time?
They get up.
They need you in a tough situation.
I know.
But it won't be, but it'll just be different. It'll be different.
So, that was like a year ago. And, that was when somebody would get up once or twice. I'd conditioned myself to be okay with it. Well, last night, I was so crabby. Not to him directly, in my own head.
Oh, good for you.
Yep. But then I kind of changed my attitude midnight. I got maybe an hour or two of sleep. So anyway.
Angela.
It's fine.
Man.
It's fine. I really am glad to be able to help him. And also, I was going to say, I finished a book.
Last night?
Yeah. Because, and on my Kindle Paperweight, which I love. Yep. And that is why I have it. And I finished Behold the Dreamers by Imbolo Mbue. Not sure if I'm saying that right. But shout out to Katie Young, one of our listeners, who recommended it on our episode about what we're reading. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what number that was. It was maybe 5 or 6 episodes ago. Yeah. Yep. So I got that one and loved it. So I was able to finish it. So that's great.
That is so good. I mean, I'm so glad you're okay with being up all night. I mean, it probably helps that it's not happening every night.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember when it used to be every night? Oh, gosh.
That's not good.
I mean, I remember especially when our twins, were babies. It was like, I felt like I was taking a nap every night. A little nap. Here and there. Yeah. Yeah. Just gearing up for a night of naps. So, I mean, some of you moms are still there and you're doing that. And then you're homeschooling all day.
Totally.
Give yourself credit.
Take a nap when your kids do.
Yeah.
How about you, Maren? How are you doing?
I'm doing better I'm doing okay. I also didn't get as good of a night of sleep, but I'll tell you, I slept better than you. Yeah. But our puppy was up whining a lot of the night.
Why?
Like I don't know. We can't figure it out. I think he doesn't like his kennel at night. He gets lonely and So I don't know what to do. I know nothing about dogs. I've never been a dog person ever. So if anybody has any ideas, my idea was, can he just sleep with one of our kids?
Yeah. Why not? You haven't tried that?
Not? Well, I'm just worried that he's going to get up while we're all sleeping and like chew something up in the middle of the night or something. But if he's happier in somebody's bed, I think it'll probably be the right thing to do.
We started with that with our dog. He started sleeping with my kids.
Yeah.
Which everybody liked, except nobody got good sleep. That was the problem. Like, he took up a lot of the bed. And
yeah.
You know, there's just a lot more wakings. Then we just decided to put him in a kennel.
Sure. And I have to tell you, I think there's something, you know how people say sometimes that husbands sometimes have this switch where they can just go to sleep and not hear their baby. You know, the moms like wake up at any little. That's how I was with with the babies, right?
Yeah.
And my husband could sleep through it. I would have to like almost like
I know
push him off the bed to wake him up.
Telling me you'd have to like physically hurt him to get him to wake up.
It'd be more work to wake him up to have him go take care of the babies than like for me to just go do it, right? But now it's the complete opposite. I don't hear the dog.
Oh.
I rarely hear this dog, but Sean gets up and he's like, oh, it's been, he's been up so much and I don't know what to do. I haven't slept. And I'm like, oh, really? I mean, I've gotten a good stretch.
Well, he's getting his turn.
It's kind of nice. I got to tell you.
Oh, that's funny.
So, anyway. Oh, do you want to talk about how we had a hard time with this episode title?
Sure. So we wanted to name it. Okay, so the title is Where We Don't Make Meaning for Our Kids with Amanda Ginn.
Yes.
But we wanted to title it Where We Don't Get to I can't even say it. Where We Don't Get to Decide What Our Kids Make Meaning Out of with Amanda Ginn.
First of all, that's a handful. I mean, that's a
lot of words.
And then it ends with a preposition.
And can you do that anymore?
Well, I mean, historically you can't do that. But I think there's like a new wave of English rules.
Really? You can end with of?
I think I've read articles where people have said, stop worrying about such a small rule.
Okay.
Like it's just, we have to get over that. We have to get over it.
Yeah.
And let it go.
Yeah.
We have to evolve.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't know. I think it's controversial.
Yeah.
So,
we
decided not to push anybody's buttons.
We didn't want anybody coming at us about our title.
I mean, it did kind of bug me a little bit.
It did. So we changed it to Where We Don't Make Meaning for Our Kids.
Mm-hmm.
Which is it gets at the idea. It's pretty much the idea. Okay, so today, based on our title, you can see that we have a guest. And we are super excited. Amanda Ginn is on. She is our real life friend. We are so grateful to be able to be friends with her in real life.
Yep. And she's been on our podcast before talking about the Enneagram.
Yes. So if you remember that episode, I think that was like episode 20 where we talked about the Enneagram with her. I'm just guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 21 or 22, somewhere around there. It was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Don't judge our audio quality if you go listen to that.
Yeah.
Because
we were learning.
Yep. So she's been on our podcast before talking about the Enneagram, which is something that we talk about together in real life because we all like talking about the Enneagram. But she also is just a really great encourager of us as homeschool parents. And she's a great encourager on Instagram too of everybody. I think that's one of her gifts. And every time we Vox with her, she says these wise things.
Yeah. She's just mind-blowing.
Mind-blowing. And we're like, Amanda, we have to get you on the podcast so everybody can hear this. This is such good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
This should not just be a couple of us hearing this. So.
Yes. So enjoy this interview, and you won't just enjoy it. You're going to get so much out of it, and you're going to feel like, well, if you're like me, you're going to feel like you can keep doing this. You can keep going.
Yep.
You've got this.
Yep.
So here it is. Hi, Amanda.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here today. Do you want to just start out by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Amanda, and I am friends with you guys, and I'm so happy to talk to you again.
Yay!
I am a homeschooling mom of 2. My daughter Ainsley is 9.5, and my son Thaddeus is 7.5, and we have been homeschooling from the beginning. And my husband is a pastor at our local neighborhood church, and we're really excited that winter is almost over. I think it's supposed to be cold and snowy one more time, but we're excited. My kids have got the scooters out and are going out without coats. It's really great. So.
Yes, feels like summer.
It's finally here.
We're taking it.
Yeah, when it's 40 degrees.
Yeah. And I love that I can show up and talk to you guys in yoga pants. This is a great gig.
Oh yeah.
We feel most comfortable talking to people in yoga pants. So
I may or may not still be in my PJs.
No one would know. That's what's great about it.
It's a great thing about podcasting.
And homeschooling.
Yeah, you want both. Yep.
Yeah.
So, Amanda, you said that you have a 9 and a 7-year-old, and I'm just curious, how would you describe your homeschool style at this stage?
We are unschoolers, I would say, more than homeschoolers in the traditional sense. So we do a lot of self-directed education, interest-led learning. There's a homeschooling writer that I like who called it child-led, family-centered learning. And so
I like that.
Yeah. So when we go to the science museum, it's not my agenda. It's what do they want to explore and how can we as a family participate in that? Or when there's a subject that they're interested in, it can become something our whole family is doing together. And so we kind of, there's ebbs and flows. So sometimes it's one kid more than the other, or we've been in a season lately where it's a lot of my husband and I are requiring a lot more time for work and projects. And so the kids kind of have to roll with that too. So it's really family centered for us.
I like that, child-led, family-centered learning.
I wrote that down.
Good.
That's good. I haven't heard that before. So that's great.
So I love that. And I've always been inspired by your homeschooling style. And I think it's something like I always try to be like. I always want to be my own. I always want to be my own. And then I always think of how natural your family learning is. I just think about it. It just comes very easy to you. So I love observing that and being like hearing from you. So how would you, because that is your homeschooling style, what is your perspective on children and how they learn, and how did that maybe affect how you decided to homeschool?
Yeah, I was really influenced a few years ago in reading John Holt and his perspective on trusting children to learn what they need to learn when they need to learn it, and that they're really learning all the time. So once I had that perspective, it was easy for me to look at what my kids were doing every day and go, oh, that's learning and that's learning too. And I kind of was able to relax as a homeschool parent. At the time, I probably wouldn't have considered us unschooling. We weren't using curriculum. We didn't have a learning timeline for anything, but it kind of opened up possibilities for me watching my kids learn and seeing how much learning was really taking place. And when I went through that season with Holt, and then I read Peter Gray's book, Free to Learn, and kind of saw the value in allowing them to play through this stage of development. And seeing the value in self-directed education as they grow older. And it sort of all met for me at the same time. And somewhere along the way, I heard the term unschooling and explored that a little bit and just felt like, well, I'm glad to know that I'm not just making it up like other people do this. But, I think seeing my children and trusting them with learning made deciding to go the unschooling route a lot easier because I had spent years observing them learning and I had built up some trust. I think if I had just started with unschooling, I probably would have been intimidated by dropping curriculum or, you know, ignoring timelines. I think it had evolved kind of naturally for me.
Yeah, I think that, and so what you just said is really what I see in you so much, and you just said it better than me, which normally you do. There's this, you know, this, as parents, we kind of toe this line between trust and control, right? And I have to, honestly, I struggle with that because I want to trust more. And I know in my heart, that's what I need to do. And I read all the books, John Holt and Peter Gray. And I am always in my mind thinking, yes, this is how it's supposed to be. And, you know, and yet I let myself kind of get pulled into this control thing. You know, I allow that to happen sometimes. And then I have to like wake up and say, oh my goodness, I need to stop this. So I think that you are a natural at the trust.
Yeah. And Amanda, too, I would say you seem really confident, I guess, in this approach, which is different from me and probably a lot of people because, like Maren said, I can buy into the idea. And then when it comes down to it, I'm like, oh, but wait a minute. They need to be doing math. Like they have to be doing math or whatever.
In a certain way. You know?
And because they're
always doing math. Oftentimes they're doing math.
Right.
It's just we don't count it as math because it's not in a certain way, right?
Right. I think that culture, because this way is not the way the culture does it. So we've got all these competing messages from culture too that are drowning out. And I am not confident like you are. You just exude this confidence that I really appreciate as your friend. So
yeah. And I think we need more people like you to share your confidence because we need it. We need to take some of that for ourselves. Or you know, it's like we need to like share some of that with you because it's so good to hear.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I think it takes like an intentionality around observing your kids, and it's a practice, you know, like I might exude confidence, but I definitely sit and wonder, like, should I be teaching them something that I haven't taught them? Like, should we be picking up a workbook or something? How can I test what they know? But I think because for our family in particular, we just have been able to really develop strong relationships too, because our kids were always home. We didn't really go through a deschooling process. We didn't really go through a season where there was a curriculum and then there wasn't.
Right.
And so out of that relationship that we have with our kids, it's easy to see that they are really learning all the time. I mean, it was part of the reason we started homeschooling was I watched a 3-year-old become a 4-year-old, become a 5-year-old. And I thought, well, they've learned all of these things up to this point without being in school. Why would I stop what we're doing and send them away to learn something that someone else decides they need to know? And so I feel like I've been through so much unlearning, you know, and this is where for parents and adults, the biggest hurdle is our own unlearning, like learning to trust ourselves instead of having to outsource our knowledge or our experience to someone else to say, well, I don't know how to do this. I don't trust myself. I need to have someone else handle this for me. And so it's a process of not just trusting your kids, but yourself. And
that's so true.
You have to let yourself go through that. We have to be deschooled probably more than our kids do because we went through 12 years and then post-secondary and, you know, we've got a lot of years of kind of being in a culture and a system that says someone else knows better than you do all the time. And so when you can learn to trust yourself even a little bit and trust your kids just a little bit, like those are seeds that start to grow, and it really can become like a huge paradigm shift, but it doesn't happen just by reading the right book or trying the right thing. I think it really is a daily practice, you know?
Yeah. One thing that kind of popped out at me there was your kids have never been in school. Or right. And so I would bet that they trust themselves too more than, say, my kids would, because my kids are also questioning. If we tend toward more unschooly type things, my kids will question, is this school? Should I be doing more math? The things that I say too, because they've already absorbed what the culture has told them and from the little bit that they've been in school. And so I bet your kids, they don't even know that. All they know is trusting themselves.
Right. And there's a flip side. It means that sometimes they question whether or not the adult that they're in an activity with has the authority to tell them how to do something. Yeah. I mean, there is a flip side for sure that their trust in themselves means they do question adults probably more than other kids. And that's natural too. I mean,
I think that's such a skill, though.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
But as a parent, you kind of go, could you just not talk to that adult that way? There's once you go this direction, there's still more unlearning and more trust. Like, you never reach the end where you're like, and now it's all figured out.
I mean, they're still 9 and 7. It's not like they're acting like an adult talking with, somebody that they're questioning. They're still 9 and 7. And so, but they're learning how to deal with an adult at 9 and 7 in a very natural way. And it can come out very uncomfortable sometimes. It can feel very uncomfortable to us and to the outer world, because adults aren't used to children questioning them like that in a real natural way.
Yeah.
They're used to more of the control.
Yeah. When the neighbor kids ask, "Oh, you homeschool, what do you do all day?" and my kids say nothing. I mean, there is something about when you adopt a lifestyle that says they're learning all the time, they're learning what they need to know when they need to know it, and you're trusting your kids and you're trusting yourself. It is there, like I said, there's kind of a flip side of my kids say nothing. So Angela, when you were saying your kids kind of go like, is this school? Like, they don't think it is. I mean, my son might play indoor basketball for half the day, and that looks a lot like nothing. And to him, it feels like just the thing he wants to do. I'm not making him do it. I'm not telling him not to do it. But after years of doing this, somehow along the way, he's learned a bunch of math skills I never taught him, because he kept score playing indoor sports by himself for half the day all year long. And so sometimes I have to actually go ahead and write down, this is what I witnessed, because my kids are self-taught readers. They're self-taught for math. They're self-taught for any of the subjects. And for years, my daughter wanted to be a wildlife biologist. And so every trip to the library was just taking home all of these nonfiction books about animals. And, it was a very narrow focal point for her science learning, quote unquote. But it's what makes her come alive right now. And it might not be that she becomes a wildlife biologist, but it's giving her life and joy right now.
Yeah. And it almost doesn't matter what the thing is that they're super into. It's just that learning is going to happen through whatever they're interested in. And I want to just say, I know you said they are self-taught, and yet I see you doing a lot of guiding. You are super supportive in that learning, so you're like, okay, you're interested in this topic. Let's go to the library and just find all the books. And then your kids are super excited about it, and they want to read all the books. And so I think you've really instilled that, that love of learning by coming alongside them.
Yeah, and that's where that child-led, family-centered aspect really influenced me, that being self-directed and self-taught doesn't mean you're doing it alone. It just means that we're going to follow your lead, and we're going to give you what you need, and we'll do it with you. And so thankfully, my kids are into things that we're kind of into, and we haven't had to stretch ourselves too far yet to learn new things. Recently, they've gotten into crafts and baking and things that I don't necessarily enjoy. They want to learn to knit and crochet, and I'm definitely going to outsource that because I will lose my mind if I have to knit with them. But that's where having, a village of people helps too, so that it's not all up to us to explore those interests with them.
So do you sometimes say, well, after they've answered the question, we've done nothing, to enough people, do you ever say, okay, actually you've learned a lot and here's what you've learned? Or do you just kind of let that go and say, yeah?
I would say 95% of the time I let it go.
Yeah.
Because I kind of don't care what other kids think my kids do during the day. So with kids, it's easier. And with the adults we're close to, they know us well enough to kind of know what's really going on. And sometimes I've had conversations with my daughter because she, despite never having been in school, she has a very school-oriented mindset around learning. And so we spent a lot of years actually having to have conversations around, I know it doesn't feel like you're doing anything, but this is what you've learned, or this is what you've had the opportunity to explore that other kids your age don't get to explore. Like they don't have the freedom to study an animal for a whole 3 weeks, just one animal, all the books that you can ever read. And, that's, sometimes it's not just about telling them what they're learning, but explaining the freedom that they have that maybe other kids don't. And so that I'm not prescribing, because you did this thing, this is what you learned, because I can't decide that for them. But I can say you've had the freedom to try this or learn this.
Yeah.
And that's not nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Amanda, because we're friends, I get to talk to you often, and you are so good at calming me down when I worry about what my kids are learning or not learning. And one day, a few months ago, you said something that struck me so hard I had to write it down. And to you, it was just natural, something that came out of your mouth naturally. But you said we don't get to decide what our kids make meaning out of. And like I said, that hit me real hard. Can you explain that a little bit more and what you meant by that?
I can try. I think when I think about that, I really hope, first of all, that I'm not just straight up stealing it from someone I read.
Okay. Disclaimer. That's fine.
Disclaimer. It might not be my original thought. I think what I mean by that is there can be days, stretches of days, where it looks like really, truly my kids are doing nothing. Like even for me, it's hard to look at what they're doing and see the value in it, because we as adults and parents are really drawn to making meaning of things. All humans are. It's very natural to want to make meaning out of things. And so when I look at them and what they've decided to do for most of the week is play something that doesn't seem exceptionally educationally valuable, I struggle to allow them to have that experience when I can't attach a meaning or outcome to it. So for a couple of weeks, my kids really got into playing all of the bonus features from their DVD collection. They would play the video games on it. They would watch the bloopers and outtakes. And I went, what is going on? Like, what is, I can't say that this is, oh, look, they're learning this math skill, or, oh, look, this rich language arts environment they're creating for themselves. There was no easy meaning or outcome. And I really, at that moment and moments prior, I've had to allow myself to remember that I don't decide what they make meaning out of. So what they needed for that time was to spend that time together, to explore those things uninterrupted, and whatever's going on in their minds is what their minds needed.
Right.
It doesn't have to have a measured outcome at the end. It doesn't have to be something they get tested on. And it might not mean anything for them for years. It's just something that was a moment for their brain development or their physical development or their relational development.
Sure.
That I needed to allow space for.
Sure.
But those are the really hard days. Those are the really hard unschooling days sometimes when you go, wait a minute.
What is even happening?
What are we doing? Like, yeah. And so.
And I think also when it has to do with the screen, we get kind of freaked out about it.
Yeah.
For sure. It's easy for me, like, oh, well, at least they played, with their Legos all day, or they created a whole world with their toys, or, they built a zoo with stuffed animals. Those are still things that I feel like I have given them meaning that makes me feel comfortable.
Right.
But when we talk about we don't get to decide what our kids make meaning out of, most of the time it means that we're uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be willing to be uncomfortable to let them have the freedom to make meaning out of things.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
And I feel like the converse is also true. So if I'm doing, let's say, fractions. Let's say I'm teaching fractions.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get to decide if that lands with my kids or if they're making meaning out of me teaching fractions, but I get to feel better. I feel better that I taught them fractions.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It's a box that I check off, but I have no idea if that's sticking or if that meant anything to them.
And even if they pass the test afterwards, you still don't know.
Right.
Because you have no idea what's going to stay with them.
Right.
For the next month, year, lifetime.
Yeah, there was a quote that I really liked from a neuroscientist that said, Joel Voss, he said, the bottom line is if you're not the one controlling your learning, you're not going to learn as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, every family is going to make a different decision. I'm not here to say that everybody should unschool and do this exactly the way we do. And your kids can learn fractions by baking and playing with the mud. Okay. That's might not be what every family decides to do, but I think there's value for every homeschooling parent in understanding that, even if you are checking that box and they are passing that test,
right.
What the fractions mean to them will be different than what you wanted them to understand.
Right. And the other really important thing about that is that the more our kids are allowed to explore their own thoughts and ideas and interests, the more they will be willing to go down our rabbit hole with us when, when I need to feel better about this or this just, our family needs more structure. We need to do it this way. Well, if they've had a chance to do some of their own learning, interest-led learning or whatever, they are so much more, they feel heard and valued as a human being. And then they feel like I can give you that same respect by letting you make some choices sometimes too. And that is a huge learning lesson right there for everyone.
And if they trust themselves enough and they know that you trust them, they might also have something to contribute to that, that lesson or to adding to the structure that your family needs. And so it's really across the board, there's value in extending more trust and relinquishing some control. Because I think families are healthier when that's the case. I think that especially for homeschooling families, we're together all day, every day. Mm-hmm. And so if it's constantly a battle of the wills and it's constantly you're the parents trying to control everybody's behavior and education and time, their schedules, I think it's an unsustainable way to spend our days together as a homeschooling family. And so there's always a value in learning to be more relational, more trusting, and to give your kids some freedom, because especially once you reach like middle age development, they really need it. They really need to be able to make meaningful contributions. They really need to have some work that matters to them, that is their own.
Right.
And so I think homeschooling parents often get more anxious as kids get older because there's more things that need to be checked off the list, right? We have to learn fractions in 4th grade. That's the way it is. But that's the same time developmentally when kids are starting to get more angsty and want some more freedom, and they need some more projects. And I have seen those struggles with my 9-year-old are, they're eased so much when she just gets a little more freedom from her brother or from our expectations or our schedule. Can she just have a little project that's her own? And so there's a lot of value in trusting and relaxing and extending some freedom and giving your kids some control over what they want to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is also good. So with this philosophy of, not making meaning for your kids, so what are the results? What kind of results do you have expectations of your results? Or, and if you do, what do you see?
Well, back to the example with watching bonus features on DVDs.
Yeah.
I mean, within a couple weeks of that, they pulled out our old digital camera and they watched the old videos they'd made, and they made some new videos with toys, and they had scripts, and it would have been easy for me to say, oh, that's what they learned and made meaning out of from watching all those bonus features, is that they decided to make their own movies, except that the meaning, the point of we don't get to decide is that we don't get to decide. I don't know if that's the outcome or if that was just another thing they wanted to explore. And so it is comforting for me to say, this was the result. This is why it was totally worth letting them spend days watching bonus features. But maybe that's not really what was going on. And that's just what makes me feel better.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, right. And so that may have been one of the outcomes, and so much more we'll never know what the outcomes of that was. And it'll play out maybe the rest of their lives, what they did in those 2 weeks together, watching those outtakes. You never know.
Right. And there's a quote that really struck me a couple weeks ago I saw on Instagram. I don't know who this person is, but it was on a lovely little photo on Instagram. It said, because never in my entire childhood did I feel like a child. I felt like a person all along, the same person that I am today. And I think when I look at the things that my kids do, I really try to see that this isn't me putting them on a factory setting, trying to get to an outcome. This is what felt good to them right now.
Yeah. It
felt good for them to watch those things together and to, laugh and to do something fun. And that can be enough. It doesn't have to be for some future outcome or future career or future skill set. It just felt good. And I think if I see my kids as people, then I like to do things that feel good. I like to laugh and watch something funny.
Yep.
I like to do that with the people I'm close to. And I think there's value just in that, right at the surface.
Yeah, I think it's so good. And I think sometimes for me, an immediate result is just how my kids are acting afterwards. After they do some kind of project like that, or, a self-directed thing that I'm kind of like, are they feeling fully whole as a person after that? Or are, I just think for them to feel like a real person and like they've made a decision about trying something and then they tried it and they felt good about it, that is a huge, amazing result. And I want that for my children for the rest of their lives, to feel that feeling.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
So, Amanda, what would you say to the worried homeschool parent? And this may or may not be like something I've asked you before. So I'm just going to pretend that there's a random anonymous worried homeschool parent who thinks
asking for a friend.
Asking for a friend. whose child maybe isn't up to grade level, or let's just say they think their child isn't doing enough, or let's say the parent feels bad because they haven't done a certain subject in a few months. What do
or what I hear from parents, and I've thought this myself, or my child has a learning issue or an attention issue, which might be, I think is real. And there's just so much worry around that too. So, and I think that goes along with that question.
That's a lot. What would you say to all those people?
I would say, calm down.
Yep.
Go eat a piece of chocolate. It's going to be okay. I look at how I learn, which is still a biased perspective, I realize. But in adulthood, given the freedom that I have outside of a schooling system or a schooling model, I might spend 6 months deeply studying one thing, and then I might not ever study it again. What we're asking kids to do for 12 years is to study 5 or 6 things every day for the same amount of time for 12 years, and to learn it all at an equal pace as everybody else. And I think the benefit of homeschooling is that you can totally break out of that model. You can have a kid who doesn't look at anything math related for 3 months, and it's okay, because you're looking at you're taking the long view of things. So if your kid hasn't done math and you're getting a little worried, it's going to be okay. They might go through a huge burst in a few months where everything is math. They're finding it everywhere. They're engaging with it in ways you would have never thought to engage them with it through a curriculum or workbook or lesson anyway. And if you can extend that trust just one day at a time, I think you'll start to see, for instance, with, an attention span thing. Well, is it that they don't have an attention span for something that they're not interested in? But if given the freedom to sit with a Lego project, will they do that for 4 hours?
Right.
Will they listen to a story for 4 hours or 4 days straight? Or, our kids do have an incredible attention span for the things that they like.
Yes.
So
miraculously, the attention.
Yeah, sort of like an adult, right? Like
exactly.
I can definitely sit with a book for a long time if it's a book I like. John Holt talks about it's a very natural thing for learners to have sort of an advance followed by a retreat. And I think of it like a rubber band stretching, right? So if you try to stretch it all the way out and you don't give it any, if you don't relax it at all, it'll snap and break. And so what we don't want for our kids is to be stretched constantly, perpetually at the same rate, day in, day out with whatever we're asking them to learn, and then break that. We need to let them come back in and relax. So maybe they're going to go through a spurt where they're fascinated with a math function, right? And everything is that math function, and they're in it every day. They're finding however they can use it. And then suddenly, like, they're going back and they're doing really easy addition, or they're retreating into a safe haven of doing, counting by tens. It's like, I know you can do better than this. Why are you doing this easy thing? Or why did you go back to an easy reader chapter book when I just saw you read that 200-page novel? And that's natural, though. They need that. They're resting their brain. They're resting their bodies from that hard work of having made a huge leap forward in learning. And so give your kids some space around whatever subject it is or whatever worry you have. It's very likely your worry and not theirs. And they probably know better than you when they need a rest. They might need to go listen to the same audiobook that they've heard 10 times before, just because it's a rest for them. And I think we do the same for ourselves, and we can do that for our kids too. They don't have to wait to be an adult to be given that freedom.
Yes. And even in the rest, even in, reading an easier book or listening to an audiobook for the 10th time, there's so much learning that really is still happening, even in those rest times. Yeah.
This is so good, Amanda. I am
so good.
So glad that you came on to talk to everybody about what you've learned and what you know and the way that you are, living and homeschooling with your kids.
Thank you so much.
Do you want to tell everybody where they can find you on the internet?
Sure. I'm on Instagram all the time. It's my favorite. It's the only place you'll find me.
Okay.
So my handle is at as we are going.
Yep.
So yeah, I'd love to meet more people there.
Yes, and all these great quotes and ideas that you shared with us on the podcast, you share those often on your Instagram page, and I love it.
Me too.
It is like my daily inspiration. So go follow Amanda.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing to talk about on Instagram.
Yep. Okay, bye, Amanda.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, Angela. Let's move on to loving this week.
Great.
What are you loving this week, Angela?
Well, I wanted to share a couple of my favorite Instagram follows.
Oh, good. I love good Instagram follows.
Yeah. These are kind of the reason that I go back to Instagram or, like keep checking because I need this shot of inspiration.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So the first one is Melissa Hartwig.
Love.
Yes.
Love, love, love.
Yes. And I think we may have mentioned her on the show before, but
I'm sure.
Lately, I am loving her. So she is the founder of the Whole30. And so she talks, some about the Whole30 and, fitness and food and stuff like that. But she's also just a great encourager of people.
Yes.
And she's so wise.
Yeah. And so real. I mean,
so real.
Yeah.
She's got a lot of just life things to share, which I just really appreciate. So even if you're not into the Whole30 or fitness or health or anything like that, she would be a great person to follow.
Right. Yep.
And she does these stories, though. She does these stories where she basically films herself in the gym doing exercises.
Right.
And even though I do not do that, and I am probably not going to ever do that, for some reason, I watch all of her stories.
Well, me either. I'm never going to be like her necessarily, but I'm always inspired by her.
Totally.
And not to do the things she does, but to do the things I do.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then also, she also, when the weather is nice enough, she does lots of hiking and she lives in Salt Lake City. Yeah. So, her Instagram stories are just, if you need a shot of just seeing beautiful scenery. And, oh my gosh.
Definitely. Yeah. So she's a good person to follow. And then my other favorite follow is Hip Sobriety.
Yes. You told me about these.
Yeah. So Hip Sobriety, I remember I told you about her probably, 6 months to a year ago or whatever. Yeah. And I remember you're like, really? Sobriety?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't need that.
Like what kind of Instagram account is that? And I do not, I'm not, well, I would say I'm accidentally sober.
Yeah.
Or inadvertently sober.
Yeah.
I don't know what the right word is. I don't drink because it makes me feel dizzy a little bit, and I'm trying to not feel dizzy.
Yeah.
Because of some other
not
things.
Not drunk dizzy.
No. No, I'm trying to, I have some health issues where I feel a little bit dizzy, and so like drinking just makes that
magnifies that.
Yeah. And so anyways, so I am not drinking, but that's not why I love her. She posts the best quotes that she does. For some reason, it just is right what I needed at that moment.
And they are for everybody.
They're for everybody, no matter what.
Yes.
It's not about drinking.
So wise.
Yeah, she collects them from other people, and sometimes they're from herself. And she did have a podcast, but does not anymore. But she calls herself a sobriety evangelist. So sometimes she does talk about sobriety, which I think is also very interesting, and I enjoy learning about that.
Yeah.
But most of the stuff she quotes is just kind of like Melissa. It's just good things to think about for life.
Well, and the other thing is, we may not be addicted to alcohol, but I think there are things we can easily get addicted to. And so I sometimes think about that.
Yeah.
When I read about her addicted, like dealing with addiction. There's so many things to be addicted to.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. So.
Yeah, just because that's not my issue currently.
Right.
I still have other issues.
For sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I love both of those. So you should follow those if you're on Instagram.
Definitely.
Maren, what are you loving this week?
Okay, so I am loving my electric kettle.
Oh, you got one?
Yeah.
Oh, I've wanted one.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I always thought you were kind of an old school, put a kettle on the stove kind of person.
I want to be that, but
okay.
But I'd like an electric one. So tell me about it.
Yeah, okay, so let's just go back to Christmas time, or before Christmas time, when I just put things on my wish list, right, on Amazon.
Okay.
I never expect anybody to get them for me, ever.
Yeah.
I just put it on there so I don't forget. Well, I think my husband right before Christmas went in and looked at my wish list and picked 3 things and got them for me.
That's great.
And this was one of them. And so it was like a huge surprise to me. And it's called, so it's a Russell Hobbs retro style electric kettle. And it's red, which I love.
Okay.
It's a little pop of color in the kitchen. You can get it in black also. But it's really big. I mean, let's see, here it says 1.7 liters. I don't know. But so it's a lot of water. It's enough for the whole family to have tea or whatever.
Yeah.
And it also has a temperature gauge on the front.
Okay.
So you can see how hot your water is getting, which I think is key, especially for kids, because, it'll go up to 212 degrees, which is boiling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
But we usually stop it at about 140 degrees for the kids, or even a little less.
Okay.
And so all winter I've been using it because we often make this, I call it get well tea, and it's just a little bit of elderberry syrup and honey and lemon.
Okay.
And so it's just so easy to have a kettle right on your countertop, and you just push this little button, push the little knob, and it heats up so quickly. It's just...
Does it?
Yes, so quickly. And it's just ready. And so it's like one step easier than I think doing it on the stove. And it looks cute. And I like it.
Nice.
So
I like it. I'm going to definitely check that out.
Yes, so I just have to wording. It is, I just looked it back up on Amazon. It's expensive now. It's $80, which is a lot of money. We did not pay that much. I'm pretty sure it was like about $40. Oh. And I'm sure it was on sale.
It's okay if you did, though.
No, I know. You're right. It's okay. But I'm just saying you might want to wait until it goes on sale again. Okay. I see here there is a coupon, save an extra 25%. Oh. So, I feel like it might even get done cheaper. So why Amazon, Amazon prices vary.
Do they fluctuate from day to day much?
Well,
gosh.
Maybe this got really popular and then they decided to jack it up. I don't know, but it is worth it. I will say, if you paid $80, you'd get your money's worth.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. Well, thank you everybody for listening to our show today. We appreciate it so much. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram at Homeschool Unrefined. You can also go to our website, which is homeschoolunrefined.com, and we put links to everything we talked about there and in our show notes in your podcast app. And we will see you next week.
Thanks for listening. Homeschool Unrefined was created by Maren Gorse and Angela Sizer. Thanks to Gambler's Daughter for providing the music for our show. You can find Gambler's Daughter at facebook.com/gamblersdaughtermusic.